1 Samuel chapter 4. Let us see the incident that happened in this chapter in short. This chapter is a narrative of a war between the Israelites and the Philistines and of the consequences of it. In the first battle, the Philistines won the Israelites. So, the Israelites proposed to fetch the Ark of the Lord and prepared for a second battle in which they hoped to succeed because the Ark was with them. But because of the crimes of Eli's sons, Israel was no longer worthy of the personal presence of God in the Ark. During the second battle with the Philistines, a large number of Israelites were slain, among whom were Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli. The Ark of God was also captured by the Philistines. On hearing this, Eli fell back and died. His daughter-in-law, who fell into labor, died also after she bore a son Ichabod. The loss of the ark is the main burden of this chapter. Who are the Philistines? The Philistines were an immigrant people from the military aristocracy of the island of Crete. Genesis 10:14, Jeremiah 47:4, Amos 9:7. They lived in 5 city-states: Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza, Gath, and Ekron, along the sea plain near the Mediterranean Sea. Their nation was called Philistia on the southwest border of Israel. Although their nation was small, its army became very powerful. It was Israel's most serious enemy during the lives of Samson, Samuel, Saul, and David. The Philistines trained their army well. They were more skilled than the other neighboring nations, especially in the way that they used iron weapons. The Philistines had many gods, but their main god was Dagon, the fertility god. He is pictured as partly man and partly fish. He was the god of grain and was responsible for giving a bountiful harvest. The Philistines believed that their gods lived in the idols, whereas the God of Israel lived in the ark. The Philistines knew what God had done in the time of Moses about 350 years ago and during the time of Judge Samson. They were afraid of the power of the God of Israel. Ark of the Lord's Covenant. The ark was the place where God dwelt in a very special way among the Israelites. This visible evidence established the special relationship between God and Israel. It contained the tablets of the Decalogue and the mercy seat where the high priest atoned for the sins of the nation. The Israelites knew that God sometimes appeared to the priests. He appeared between the cherubim on the top of the ark, which had 2 wings. The cherubim were gold and were on the golden lid of the ark. Who is seated above the cherubim? This is an allusion of the divine presence that rested upon the ark. Where it goes, it displays God's power among the nations. The ark went in front of the marchers around the city of Jericho. Joshua 6:6-8. Moses told the priest to lead the ark into battle against the Midianites. Numbers 31:6. The ark was with the Israelites as they crossed the Jordan to take possession of Canaan. Then Joshua set up the sacred tent, which was God's house in Shiloh. From that time, the ark remained in Shiloh. Over the past 300 years, the people of Israel had forgotten the power and authority of the Lord who rules and guides his people. Efek. The town of Efek was only about 40 kilometers. that is about 25 miles to the west of Shiloh, where the Ark of God was. This town is located in the eastern edge of the Jezreel Valley, just north of Carmel, at the source of the Yarkand River. It stood on the northern border between the Philistine and Israelite territory. Israel goes to battle against the Philistines. The narrative in chapter 4 begins with the Israelite army meeting the Philistines in battle near Efek. The Israelites had not trained their army very much, so it was quite easy for the Philistines to defeat them. The Lord allowed the Philistines to defeat them in the first battle. 4,000 of Israel's men died in the battle. This battle was a disaster for Israel. The other soldiers returned to Israel's camp and they were worried. The leaders of Israel knew that the Lord let it happen. It seemed clear that they would not be able to defend themselves in the next battle. Ark of the Covenant called for battle. Being sure that they cannot defend themselves in the next battle with the Philistines, the leaders of Israel made an extraordinary decision to take the ark back into the battle. They thought that they could win the battle if God was with them. This had happened in the past. In Joshua's conquest of Jericho, the ark played a very important and visible part of the victory. Joshua 6:6-20. These leaders thought that if God would not fight for them, they would force him to fight for them. So they brought the Ark of the Covenant from Shiloh into the camp of Israel. God did not guide those leaders to make that decision. Moreover, at this period of Israel's history, Israel's people were not even loyal and humble to God. They thought of using the ark like a pagan idol and regarded the ark as the ultimate good luck charm. They looked to the ark to save them, not to the Lord. The two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were with the Ark of the Covenant of God. Instead of trusting in God, they were more concerned that the ark was carried by priests who had forsaken the Lord. They had adopted an increasingly pagan attitude and believed the ark's presence among them in the battle would ensure victory. The fact that the people shouted loudly when the ark of the Lord's covenant came into the camp from Shiloh is an indication that they were hoping to duplicate the victory at Jericho. Joshua 6:20. It became part of the ritual of the ark. The real irony of the situation is that they came to Shiloh to get the Ark of God, but they completely missed God. Trying to duplicate previous spiritual victories by going through the same procedures is no substitute for getting right with God. Judges 16:20, Matthew 23:25. Response of the Philistines. It surprised the Philistines very much to hear loud, joyful shouts from Israel's camp. The people of God acted as pagans, while the neighboring pagans, the Philistines, understood that the Ark of the Covenant represented the presence of the living God. It's interesting that the Philistines react with reverence and awe in remembering the great things God had done for Israel in the past during their exodus in the desert. They realized that they were in trouble. They said, "Who will deliver us from the hands of these mighty gods?" They are the gods who struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues. That made the Philistines afraid. The presence of the ark did not make the Philistines feel like giving up. Instead, it made them feel that they had to fight all the harder to overcome the odds. They motivated themselves by saying, "Be strong, be men, or you will be subject to the Hebrews." They had the courage of desperate men. Israel's defeat in the second battle against the Philistines. The Philistines fought hard against Israel with all their strength. The Israelites, however, felt the battle would be easy with the Ark of the Covenant being with them. The Philistines fought, and the Israelites were defeated, and every man fled to his tent. It was a terrible defeat for Israel, who trusted in the power of the ark instead of the power of God. The success of the Philistines in the second battle was much greater than their success in the first battle. By the end of the battle, the Ark of God was captured and 30,000 men from Israel died. Among them were the priests Hophni and Phinehas, the sons of Eli. God promised that the two sons of Eli would die on the same day as proof of his ultimate judgment on the house of Eli. 1 Samuel 2:34. Now the proof of judgment came. The 450 years of Israel's leadership by the priests, said in Acts 13:20, thus came to an end. The transition of leadership from Eli's sons to Samuel begins here. Samuel continued to be Israel's first prophet. Ark captured. The Philistines couldn't have captured the ark unless the Lord permitted. The capture of the ark was worse than just losing a battle, because this was the very thing they thought would win the battle. But the ark of the Lord was still on the throne in heaven. The God of the ark was still on the throne in heaven and guiding these circumstances for his glory. God showed he was greater than the ark. Death of Eli. At Shiloh, perhaps nobody waited in a more anxious manner for news from Israel's battle than Eli did. The news reached Shiloh late on the day of the battle. A man ran all the way there to bring a report of what had happened. He tells that Eli's sons died in the battle and the ark was captured. As said in Leviticus 21:10-12, as Israel's chief priest, Eli did not join in the sad ceremonies of his son's death. Eli knew that God's judgments are right and proper. Eli would not allow any such news upset him. But the news about the Ark of the Covenant really upset him. It was the sacred box that acted as an evidence of God's covenant with Israel. Eli and his family had guarded that box for 450 years. As chief priest, Eli considered nothing to be more precious as that ark. At the news of its loss, Eli had no answer. Israel had lost the one object that proved its relationship with God. Because of the shock, Eli fell and he died. He was 98 years old and he had led Israel for 40 years. Final episode. Ichabod born. In the final episode of Eli's family story comes Eli's daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas. The shock of the news brought a premature delivery in the wife of Phinehas. Her remarks underscore her regret for the loss of the ark. Josephus, the historian, reported that she gave birth at 7 months. In giving birth, we are told that the mother dies. To reflect her anguish and the national tragedy upon Israel, before she dies, she names her son Ichabod, which in Hebrew literally means the glory has departed from Israel, reflecting the departure of the glory from the tabernacle. By the word glory, she meant God Himself had left Israel, and without God's kindness, there is no hope for anyone. First Samuel chapter 4 questions. First Samuel chapter 4 answers to the questions.